What's up, guys? Today was supposed to be my evening routine, but it was really more of a tell than a show, and this being video format, show not tell is sort of a golden rule. So I'm refilming that tonight. It will be uploaded tomorrow, probably right before I leave to go visit some friends for the weekend. Yeah, so today I'm going to sort of be going through, I've got a list of 15 of the weirdest stories from Greek mythology. I'm gonna pick, let's do 5. I'll pick 5. I've got a basic idea of which ones I'm gonna do at the moment. So yeah, it being Youth Art Month and Greek and Roman myths generally being, I know which ones I'm going to do. Yeah, and then the myths generally being points of inspiration for various artworks and stuff. So our first one for this video is Erysichthon. Now he is a king. He's incredibly greedy, incredibly gluttonous, so rich that he doesn't know what to do with his money, and he's basically just trying to throw it anywhere he can to sort of flex his power. Really not a great guy to begin with, and then decides that since he loves eating so much, he's going to build a bigger feast hall in his palace, and where he wants it to go happens to, like, the land that he wants to build it on happens to include a sacred grove of trees, so he cuts it down. Now, I don't think it's a surprise to anyone that cutting down a sacred grove of trees is going to earn you the spite of the particular goddess or god or goddess to whom those trees were sacred, and so Demeter decides that she's going to punish him for cutting down her trees to build, of all things, a feast hall. And seeing that he's building a feast hall and that he's already this greedy, gluttonous man, decides that that is exactly how she's going to punish this man, and makes him become so hungry that he immediately eats all of his food stores. He immediately spends all of his money buying food to try and feed himself, and then after all of that's gone, tries selling his own daughter to the merchants and stuff that are sailing into town or traveling into town via the roads and stuff. Tries selling his own daughter to these people for the food that they've just brought in, and really sort of losing any respect that people had for him beforehand. His daughter manages to slip away from, like, the first merchant, so Erysichthon's like, well, I'm just going to do it again, but to a different guy. She slips away a couple more times before finally realizing that he's just going to keep selling her, and decides to just leave with the next merchant she's traded to, just so that Erysichthon can't trade her anymore because she's tired of being a bargaining chip, basically. There is something annoyingly just there. Trying to ignore it, but it's better. But yeah, so she gets out of town, basically, and that's when he suddenly realizes that he's got nothing left. He's basically been reduced to the only possession he has is this, like, run down, like, little cabin in the woods that he probably, I could only assume, had used as sort of a hunting lodge sort of thing. And so he's sort of living out in the middle of these woods and is so hungry that he decided to start eating his own flesh. And one version of the story goes that that his daughter had sort of was overcome with guilt and grief and wanted to come back to try and help her father, believing that there was some sort of like logical way out of this, you know, like he just appeased Demeter or something, and wanted to sort of encourage him to do that, only to find that his cabin, the only thing that was left of him was like faint traces of blood up the walls, because he'd basically eaten himself to oblivion, which is so much fun. The next one we're going to talk about. We're going to be talking about some horrible guys in this. Okay, just putting that out there. So we've got Ixion, another really not that great of a guy. He had committed crimes, but had Zeus take pity on him, and was therefore invited to party on Olympus, which, for one, he's just done a bad thing. He should be punished, not told, hey, come party with the gods. This will become a recurring theme for this video. Zeus does not have the best taste when it comes to party guests. So once Ixion gets to Olympus and sort of sees all of the gods, he immediately starts obsessing over Hera, Zeus's wife. Like, you don't go to someone's house and then meet their partner and immediately start going, I'm gonna get with that, because that's like bad hospitality as you know, coming from a guest. But that's what he does. Zeus senses this and decides to do a social experiment. Zeus was really a trendsetter in that way, doing the first social experiment. And so he creates a sort of identical lookalike of Hera out of clouds and sends this new cloud form Hera, whose name is Nephel, off to see if Ixion's actually going to make good on his lustful intentions, so to speak. And Ixion does. Zeus then realizing that had he actually sent Hera to visit Ixion's chambers, that he would have slept with Ixion would have slept with his wife, becomes, I think, rightfully enraged and pins him to a flaming wheel in Tartarus for all eternity, with the constant turning motion reflecting the whirlwind of emotion sort of thing that comes from lust. And it's also kind of funny because it's like, if he's always spinning his head over heels perpetually for all eternity, and it's kind of funny. The other fun thing that came out of this myth was that they had kids. Somehow he impregnated Cloud, and they had two sons, Lepith and Centaurus. Centaurus was a bit of a weirdo. He had sex with horses and birthed the race of centaurs. Lepith was like, nah, that's whack, and his race of people that came from him, the Lepiths, are like, sort of from that point onwards, sworn enemies of the centaurs, and they do even have their own war as its own myth in Greek mythology. Going down to the next one, we've got Skyron. We're gonna sort of set that. Did I go past another one that I won't read? Did I? No, apparently I didn't. Okay. So we've got Skyron. That's not that I was thinking of. Who is this thief, and he has his little camp set up sort of at the top of this cliff, and whenever people would come along, he would ask them to come and help him wash his feet. I'm not sure if it was because he was like hunchback or whatever, like couldn't quite reach them properly or whatever, but he would ask for help in having his feet washed. And while they were bent over, like they put their stuff down, they bent down to help wash his feet. While they were bent over, he'd kick them in the face and push them off the cliff. Much to the delight of this monstrously large man-eating tortoise that swam around in the waters beneath. And if the fall didn't kill them, the tortoise would eat them while they're still alive, otherwise he'd eat them dead. And there are also occasions that I've read at least, or versions of the myth, where the tortoise would jump up out of the water and catch them as they were falling and sort of swallow them whole. And so Skyron did this over and over again, basically performing a not so symbiotic relationship with this tortoise, in that he would feed the tortoise, and he would also be able to claim any belongings they had put down before trying to clean his feet. So it was really sort of unless you were the traveller, it was sort of a win-win for Skyron and the tortoise. After coming back from slaying the Minotaur, Theseus, ascending to being the king after his father died, has one of the villagers come and inform him of this giant tortoise that is blocking ships from sailing into town because it's a man-eating tortoise. And then hears more and more stories about how this tortoise is affecting his town. His town's starting to die out, people are moving away in order to try and make better lives for themselves. So he decides that part of his duties as king is to go and see what the hell is up with this tortoise. So he starts heading up to fight it, notices that it seems to mainly just be circling around under this cliff, and while inquiring about it, gets told about Skyron, who sort of camps up at the top of this cliff, and that he gets people to wash his feet and then kicks them off, which feeds the tortoise, and so therefore the tortoise doesn't really want to go anywhere else because it's got a free feed right there. And so Theseus does the most reasonable thing anybody would do. He walks up to the top of the cliff and he throws Skyron off. Skyron obviously asks him to come over, wash his feet, notices that it's Theseus, becomes real excited because he's got to have some valuable shit on him, only to then be sort of picked up and thrown off the cliff himself, eaten by the tortoise, and then once there's no more food coming down from the cliff, the tortoise eventually just swims away. So after the Trojan War, on his way home, Odysseus had a right old time of it. The gods had decided that he was going to be punished for whatever crimes he had committed during the war. I do believe there is a point in the Trojan War myth where he dishonours one of the gods, but seeing that he's one person out of all of the Greeks there, and that everyone else is honouring them the way they see fit, they don't take their wrath out on him during the war. They wait till it's over, and pretty much immediately as they're sailing back, Zeus summons a storm that separates them from the rest of the fleet. Poseidon then tries making the sea real rough, smashes the boat against some rocks, hoping that he'll fall and be impaled on these really sharp rocks. Somehow he and most of his crew survive. They get washed ashore on Colchis, which is a pretty significant location because it is also the place where Jason and the Argonauts had gone to claim the Golden Fleece. So they land on this island, and they come across Circe, who is this witch and can perform all manner of magic, and she lives on this island. And so when they wash ashore, she invites them to a feast, and all the other men happily attend. And Odysseus decides that, no, I'm not going to, like, we've just been at war, then we had this massive shipwreck and this storm and stuff come up. We don't know for certain that this is going to end well for us, and it ends up helping him out because Circe has cast magic on the food that makes anyone who eats it turn into a pig, obviously with the intent of them using them to feed herself. Hermes deciding that the men don't deserve to die, and seeing that his only option of saving them is Odysseus, tells Odysseus about this, and he goes to confront her. He gets there, and he basically holds her at knife point. She confesses, apologizes, returns all of the men back to their original forms, and then Odysseus just sort of lets it go. They stay there for a whole year, and they party with Circe. Rather than going, okay, well, that's cool, let's start building another boat and just get the hell home. And they end up staying there for a year, partying, before they decide that that's something they should probably look into. And in some versions of this story, Odysseus even shares Circe's bed, which we all know what that's polite conversation for. And even fewer versions actually have them having kids together. And considering that during this time, Odysseus' wife is at home, just turning away any and all guys that want to get with her, is kind of a dick move on his behalf. The next one down, we've got Sisyphus and Tantalus. Now, I have got the article that I'm getting these myths from linked down below. It's a 15 weirdest stories from Greek mythology from Ranga.com, and you are more than welcome to go and read the rest of them if you want, but I'm sort of putting in a little bit extra knowledge from my many years of reading Greek mythology. So the first one in this section that lists both Tantalus and Sisyphus is we've got Tantalus, and again he gets invited to party with Zeus, which can only mean that he's horrible at upholding Zeno, which is the sort of law of hospitality, and it involved things both for hosts and for guests. So if you were a host, there were specific things you had to do to uphold this law, and if you were a guest, there were certain things you had to do as a guest. Otherwise, you'd sort of be dishonoring the gods, even just in having dinner at your friend's place, sort of thing. And so Tantalus had sort of decided at one point that that was not a law that applied to him. So there was on one occasion he stole the elixir of the gods, ambrosia, and gave it to his other mortal friends. There was another time where he cut up his own son and boiled his son's flesh into a stew, served that to the gods, and this bit here goes on to say to punish him, blah, 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 and doesn't fill in the fact that his son Pelops is the one that's being fed here. If Pelops sounds kind of familiar, it's because he's later on the one who has the entire Peloponnesian Peninsula named after him, meaning that he's kind of a big deal in Greek mythology. He is brought back to life, but this particular time that they decided to have this feast has been just after the turning of the seasons from summer into autumn, and so therefore it's become time for Hades to reclaim Persephone as his bride and for her to go spend the 6 months of the year that she's sort of forced to spend in the underworld with him. And so she comes in, she's like Demeter comes in and she's beside herself because she's just lost her daughter again. Whenever her daughter comes home, she lets the trees grow again, she makes flowers bloom, and that's spring. All the animals have their offspring and stuff to enjoy that, and when she's taken away, she just sort of neglects her duties as a nature goddess, and the leaves start to die in autumn, and in winter it gets cold, etc. She's basically the one that puts the seasons into effect, sort of thing. And so she's beside herself. She just starts eating, despite the fact that the other 11 gods around the table are like, this is messed up. So that's when they decide that they're going to punish him. Only having taken like a couple of mouthfuls before realizing, oh shit, this is not something I should be eating. Means there's already a part of Pelops' body that's basically been eaten, off his body, sort of thing. So they end up using their godly magic, putting him back together, and realizing that his shoulder is like completely missing. So they replace it with ivory, and then claim that it's a mark that his family from then on is cursed. And Tantalus, if you count him as like the first generation, Pelops is the second. There's another 3 underneath them before this entire family this entire family curse is like lifted. And some major characters involved in this are such small characters as Helen of Troy and the entire Trojan War, for instance. So it's by no means a small myth. It's like the myth that all of myths kind of connect to in a weird way. So his entire bloodline is then cursed, and he's like sent to live, but Tartarus is Tantalus is sent to Tartarus, where his eternal punishment is to stand in sort of like knee-deep pool of water underneath an apple tree, and whenever he bends to collect water in his hands, the waters will recede away from him, and whenever he tries to reach up to grab an apple, the trees will ever so slightly lift their branches up so that the apples are always out of reach. And it's from his name, Tantalus, that we get the word tantalizing, because he's always being tantalized with water and food, and that's his eternal punishment, is to just starve forever, because obviously, being that it's a punishment, he's cursed with immortality and then put in this situation with no way of actually being able to get out of it. Sisyphus, his myth, his punishment is a little bit more simple, but he was a very cunning man in life, often tricking the gods, his fellow mortals, and even on, I believe, one occasion, it may have been more, but death itself. In punishment for being such a sneaky guy, the gods condemned him to roll a boulder up the hill for all eternity. However, whenever he would get the boulder to the top of the hill, it would roll down the other side, and he'd have to go and roll it up the hill again, because his punishment was basically put this rock on top of the hill, but the hill was shaped so that it would never be able to hold the stone no matter which way you sort of turned it on top of it. And the last one we're going to talk about, which is also the last one on the list, is Hercules fighting Antaeus. Obviously everyone's heard of Hercules. He is the most popular hero from Greco-Roman mythology. I'm actually going to start using his proper name here, Heracles. Hercules is the like Romanization of his name, because to them Hera was not a god, whereas Heracles roughly means sort of like glory to Hera sort of thing, which is ironic because Hera hates him. She's the whole reason he had to do the 12 labors to begin with, basically. She's the one that sent snakes to his crib. There's a whole bunch of other ones where she's basically just tried to kill him at every point because he is, you know, such a well-known son of Zeus and not her child. So he's like a very prominent bit of evidence of her husband's infidelity. Anyway, we know that he's quite the hero, and he was able to take on anything that came his way, and he would win every time. However, there was this giant named Antaeus who was completely immortal as long as his feet touched the ground. He was a son of Gaia, and so by having connection to his mother, he was immortal, because she had vowed to protect him as long as they maintained contact. And so other people had tried to kill him before and lost. And I think it's also important at this point to point out that giant in this case is not correct. It's not like he was, you know, fee-fi-fo-fum. He was part of a race called the Gigantes, which many people have just come to call the giants in Greek mythology, but it did not necessarily mean that they were 30 feet tall. It's just that he is not a human. He's not a human, he's not a titan, and he's not a god. He's this other race that fills the earth. And so knowing that Antaeus was able to be immortal and would win any fight that he had, as long as he maintained contact with the ground, decided to have him sort of challenge Hercules, and so sort of plotted for them to meet in such a way that Hercules would have no choice but to fight him. And Hercules also, I think it's fair to point out, he loves to fight. He likes wrestling, he likes boxing, and so when Antaeus sort of challenges him to a wrestling match, Hercules accepts and they begin to wrestle. Hercules quickly figures out that you know, he could do as much damage as he'd like, but as soon as he threw Antaeus to the ground, any damage he just inflicted would basically be taken away. Imagine it's like playing the game of Mortal Kombat, and you're getting your opponent's health bar down, and then you do a super special move or whatever, and they manage to fall back to the ground. As soon as they touch the ground, the health bar just regenerates. It would be maddening, and that's what he was up against. And so, being that he was more than just muscle, our boy Heracles, he quickly comes up with a very simple solution to this problem. And so the next time Antaeus came in to grapple, Hercules grabbed him around the waist, lifted him up, and crushed him. Obviously killing him, being crushed sort of around the waist area, just below the ribs, would have cracked a couple of ribs inwards into his internal organs, as well as really sort of debilitating his diaphragm from being able to push his lungs, and so basically suffocating him while also breaking quite a few bones in his midsection. And then once he was dead, threw him to the ground, because once you're dead, you can't be regenerated, which obviously surprised Tara, who believed that this immortal giant was her end all. But yeah, that's a couple of the myths off this list. If you do want to read the other ones, as I said, it's in the link down below. Greek mythology is one of my favourite things of all time, so I really hope you enjoyed this video. I hope I was able to share some interesting information. There's a whole heap of other Greek myths that if you guys would like, I will make videos on at a later date. I'll probably start with the one, like the main one that I brought up, which was the House of Atreus myth, with Tantalus and Pelops and Helen of Troy, and that whole debacle there, basically, because that's a whole heap of fun. But let me know if you want to see that by giving this video a big thumbs up. If you want to see more videos like this, you can click the subscribe button, and if you want to be notified, make sure you hit that bell as well, so that you'll know when I upload again. And until next time, guys, keep your head screwed on.